get this out to as many people as possible. I must say that we are recording this session and it's being streamed live on YouTube as well. And so we will do this just as I did the other week, where if you want to come up and ask a question to David in a little bit, then just raise your hand. If you think about anything, just raise your hand and we will bring you up on stage. That audio will be recorded in the YouTube stream. I have to say that because of the guidelines of Clubhouse. But don't be afraid. We will edit it out if it goes wrong and things like that. So it's perfectly fine to ask any kinds of questions. And I hope to open this up in a way in which you will be comfortable to do so as well. So here's the thing, I was talking to David the other week, and we were talking about his podcast and about different growth strategies in order to grow with, essentially. And then he started talking about the guests that are coming on his podcast, and I was like, seriously, these are the kind of people that I'd like to get inspired by or get some inspiration from in order to deal with my own shit. Because I know that a lot of us out there have been experiencing health issues as Corona started going on. I gained about 16 kilos. I went from 80 kilos to 96 kilos in a very short period of time, from too much eating, too little sleeping, a lot of stress, financial, all of that. It just skyrocketed. And I didn't take care of myself. And so my hips started hurting, my knees started hurting. And I was not in a very good place. And I've managed to fix that over the past few weeks and months. And I think that sort of journey has been really great for me in terms of my performance in my projects. And so I just wanted to bring David on here to talk a little bit about, the guests that has visited his podcast, but also talk a little bit about himself, what he's working with, how we can deal with some of these questions that we might have around our health and around our well-being. I did ask a few questions in the Facebook group for the Swedish Growth Hackers. So we have some prepared questions after we are done with this, but please, if you have anything, just if you're on YouTube or on Facebook, then please comment in the comment section there and I will bring up your questions. Or if you're on Clubhouse, then just raise your hand and I'll bring you up on stage. So David, welcome.
Thanks very much for that kind intro, Jesper. Yeah, appreciate it. Go on, sorry.
Now tell us a little bit about who you are. Let's begin there.
Yeah, well, I'm a father of two beautiful children. I'm living in Dublin, Ireland. I'm a physiotherapist. I've been practicing as a physio for 12, 13 years now. And since I moved back from London 2 years ago to Ireland, I've created a wellbeing company. I've started a podcast and also an online learning and mentoring community for physios. And kind of those are the main things I'm doing at the moment. So I also still do a little bit of work for some MBA teams in terms of consultancy, kind of in the realm of performance and sports medicine. So a few different hats.
So this is really where my trigger started going when you were talking about combining the performance with the well-being, because of my experience that I started performing so much better as my health was getting better naturally. But the problem is we don't think about these things on a daily basis, or I at least don't take care of myself in a way that is good. So let me ask you this, what are some of the things that you encounter on a sort of, or have encountered that common things when people are trying to perform at a high level and experience stress, and what is it that we do to ourselves?
Well, I suppose the big thing, you referred to the pod earlier. Dan John, who we spoke to a couple of months ago, would have often said, you're the sum of your habits. And I really do believe that when you talk about routine, which has been shocked seismically through COVID, your routine will have changed, and probably what made you somewhat successful, happy, productive, not inclined to be distracted, that's probably been altered a lot. So the things that were probably quite good and normal for you might have been changed. So you've touched on the transformation that you've gone through from quite a few kilos. You became a sumo wrestler, and then you came back down to a good weight. So it's important to understand what are the good habits you have in your day and really try to keep ownership and be accountable for them, because if you let outside stresses, things you can't control, affect them, it's usually going to have a sort of bad knock-on effect to you, physically, mentally, socially, all sorts of different ways. If we're going to talk about the well-being entity as well. So
yeah. And how would you say, like, so for me, that when I'm like, especially, I don't know, I really don't know which one it is that is affecting me the most. Like, so we have the title here, which is Sleep, Eat, Perform, Repeat. And like, I thought for a while, I was running this sort of growth project in the beginning of the summer, where I had this really, because I needed a routine, I understood that. And I had this really like detailed routine for every day, but that sort of increased the stress level a lot when I wanted to implement it, and then things came in from the side, but then eating went really bad as well, because of, I was eating too much because I was sitting still and I just craved sugar, and of course, like, performing started going down. In a down spiral. Like, what is it in, like, sleeping, eating, like, repeat, like, what is it that is, would you say, has the most effect on a person's well-being?
To be honest, I'd say, like, firstly, as I'll often say, everyone's an individual and it does vary. I think they're all important. It's hard to put weight on one of those factors. The biggest thing that seems to be a common denominator with high performers in any space is they're consistent and they're diligent and they're responsible. So they tend to do the best they can with what is there. So sleep is a huge thing, right? Like, I have 2 young babies, so my sleep isn't great. My sleep cycles, my quality of sleep, my deep sleep, my REM sleep, as much as I try to understand wind down routines and so forth, my sleep's not great, but I do what I can. I try to give myself the best chance to sleep well, because if you sleep well, it's going to set you up well for your morning. And then food and nutrition is massively important, right? Like you said, the sugar, there's no doubt people are probably binging more on that, watching Netflix over the last couple of months. So it'd be hard to break them apart. But if you don't try to look after those entities, your performance is going to take a knock. And of course, your well-being is going to take a knock. Yeah. So they're so important, and they're very much intertwined.
So let's say I stop sleeping, or because one of the questions in the Facebook group is actually, how do I improve my sleep? So let's start with, like, when I stop sleeping regularly, or when I like lower my sleep, what is it that actually happened to me? What can I expect I will experience?
Well, I think the biggest thing, what will affect your sleep, is stress, right? Anxiety, change routine. So what's going on in the outside world? We don't know what's going on with the vaccine, and different things are going on with government measures and all that. That's going to affect your sleep, right? As well as a multitude of other potential factors. But what you can do to improve your sleep is give yourself the best chance. So owning an evening routine is really important, keeping it consistent, and having all those things we think about, dark room, needs to be a little bit colder. You're trying to remove as much noise as you can. Understanding the whole thing about, when do you have caffeine? Do you have something like tart cherry juice, which you hear performance athletes sometimes take to help. Sometimes people take kiwi fruits, that can help. People take zinc and magnesium, those things can help. So there's lots of different, we spoke to a fellow called David Dunn recently, performance nutritionist who works with golfers and developing an app. And he would have said, the most important thing is just having a consistent, trying to go to bed at that rough hour, and make sure you take this, and this. Don't eat too much of a heavy meal. So it's all basic stuff. But you can chunk it up a little bit if you want. But like, the biggest investment, what I made over last year was buying an Aura ring, right? Shout out to Aura. And what that's done is it's empowered me to understand, to be a little bit more consistent when I'm going to bed, and understanding then when I need to wind down babies and when I need to switch off from the laptop, because it gives you the best chance to bank good sleep. So lots of factors there we can unpack,
So is that, so let me begin with the laptop, because it's my partner in bed. It goes with me wherever I, Let's start with that. Like, does that actually, is that a myth, or does that actually increase my, like, what do I have, is that a good idea to, because I fall asleep to sounds from like poker players playing poker. That's my favorite,
Yeah, well, you might have YouTube open with white noise or brown noise, right? If you like the ambience of a coffee shop. But yeah, like, of course, there's a lot of literature out there and evidence to say blue light is not good. We've heard that, you can put a filter on your phone or the iPad or on a laptop. But if it's your normal and you're used to it, like my wife watches Netflix and then she tends to be able to fall asleep 10 minutes after. It doesn't affect her sleep. But maybe if you looked deeper and she went to a sleep scientist like Matthew Walker over in California, he'd say, look, your REM sleep, the sleep that's important for curiosity and creativity and learning, has it been impacted because you've been on your laptop until 11:30 in the evening? No. So I try to switch off from it, maybe around 6 or 7. But again, I mean, Jesper, you might be able to stick on to 11 and you might be able to still fall asleep quickly. So it does still depend. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So one of the things that you mentioned, routine. So if I let's say, so time was of essence there, like to set the time when I'm pretty much more or less go to sleep or go to bed or start going to bed every evening, and then dark room is better than light room, or
that's what blackout blinds and things like that really help, and not too much of a distraction. I don't know what you can say on Clubhouse, but your bedroom's supposed to be only for a couple of things, right? So
you can say anything. Yeah. I'll report you and I will be removed.
That's okay. So that's all good.
No, but then you mentioned blue light. Now, to put a little bit of context into this, I have one of those YouTuber blue lights behind my screen that is always blue. It's like shining up the wall behind me, behind the screen there. That's not a good thing to say.
Well, for most people, but like my baby inside has something like a blue light that emits onto the ceiling. It helps him fall asleep. So yeah, you'd probably say the science is there to say no, yes, but you should drop that. That's not going to help your sleep. But maybe it's part of your secret formula that's got you back cutting weight like an MMA fighter. So can't complain there.
No. And so let me ask you this, just to like bring it back to the topic, not to talk about my sleeping habits, because one of the things that I'm curious to know, I think many of the people who are in here listening, like you've been hosting a couple of these podcast sessions now, and sessions with a lot of people who are high performers from around the world. Is there something you see that is common in their practices, in what they do to sort of maintain their well-being whilst performing on higher levels?
Yeah, well, I think they all have an innate curiosity to learn from other areas, right? Jay Akonzo came on before, and he talked about the kind of diversity piece of learning what the best do. Who do you admire? What can you take from them? What can you steal from them to help yourself? They all seem to very much have an alignment of their purpose as well. So what gets them out of bed in the morning? What's driving them? What's motivating them? What's making them tick? That's the essence of why the podcast was founded. And then aligning with the purpose, they all tend to have values that they lean on, especially at times when they're tested. Challenge and adversity would hit them, and can they still lean on their integrity? And also when things are going really well, they don't get over ecstatic with it because they know it should be their normal to be performing at a high level. So like they all also seem to be very much in the present. And I think that's a huge thing. I've spoken to a couple of people recently, someone in New Zealand, someone in the States, works with NBA players, and any of these high performance, be it in the military, be it in the arts, be it podcast hosting, be it writing, be it sports, they tend to not worry about tomorrow or yesterday, but they only focus on what they can control now. So if we're worrying about what's happening in the next 20 minutes, we're not going to be delivering the best we can right now. So that seems to be, it's the biggest thing for me that's come through them all and really resonated with a lot of my work, because with all the stuff that's going on outside, if you think about it, at the point in time you're supposed to be focusing and doing something at a high level, you're not going to be able to do it to a high level because you're distracted. So that ability to be locked in the flow, in the zone, focused, by being prepared is so important. And that's what they all seem to have.
This is also very interesting in terms of like, if I can extrapolate a little bit, like for me, I see like I am an organism and I function based on the things happening around me and within me, blah, blah, blah. But it's also the case when I meet a big company, right? So the success of especially the launch or the quick tactical projects that I'm running, where we're going to get something and get a lot of results in a very limited time, if the company in itself is experiencing a lot of worry, like they're worrying about everything, they're like, we need a plan for that, we need a da for that, we need there's all these worries about what the bosses, what the country managers, what people in the future and in the past are going to think of them, and if they were going to be able to maintain and keep their job, all of that worry. If we have a lot of that in the project and a lot of distrust in the project, what happens is that the end results, because of one, first and foremost, lack of motivation and like lack of clarity in what we are actually going to achieve and accomplish, because in those kind of settings, the accomplishment is pretty much considered the PowerPoint that is presenting the launch rather than the actual launch, because the actual launch, everyone just goes like that, but for a company that has a high level of trust, and of course, in 99 out of 100 cases, when we have a lot of worrying, either I go berserk and I just shut everyone down and then I just go for it, or the project starts, going downhill. Like the results are, it's like 1/10 of the results from a healthy organization in terms of trust and in terms of ability to be in the now, like focus on solving this problem. And they always, like the worrisome organizations, they always tend to have tons and tons and tons of meetings and pre-meetings that takes away focus from your actual delivery. Whilst the trustworthy ones, the ones that give you trust and all of that, they put all the emphasis on producing the results. And I find it interesting when you talk about the human being and being able to, being curious, purpose-driven, values to lean on, and be in the presence and locked in that zone. I find it really interesting that it sort of seems to be, not only for ourselves, but also for the organizations we meet. And I find it to be like, of course, like maybe it's like super obvious, but for me it becomes like I really like the idea of organizations being like us people, in the sense that they need to practice, they need to stay healthy and things like that we need to do too. So that was a lot of words, but very little context.
No, it's very interesting. It's interesting, Jesper. And what comes through there, I think, is planning is so important, right? And you're going to have people in an organization, be it in a business or in a sporting franchise or in a platform like this, that it's important you outline from the get-go nearly a strategy. You need to be strategic in terms of deciding what you're doing, and everyone understanding what they are doing, what their roles are. That will then help with the people that are a little bit out of focus, but because they're thinking about that in the front, that's okay. But if that alignment piece is there, because there is a bit of a framework in place, that's really important, because the framework and the strategy and the forward thinking and all that preparation is going to help people look after the process, right? And if you get the process nailed on to a high level, well, the outcome of the goal is going to look after itself. You're going to hit your sales, margins are going to be okay, you're going to get your book published, podcast is going to get viral, all that sort of stuff should, like Bill Walsh, former 49ers coach, used to say, the score takes care of itself. Yeah. So it's a huge thing, and the more people you get into that sort of boat, the better chance to be well and productive and present and healthy.
Cool. Switching back to like ourselves, our physical well-being and things like that, does performance, like in terms of output performance, is it always is there a linear relationship there with how much, like, or if I am more fit, will I be able to always perform in the thinking area as well, or is there sort of like can I get up to a level where I almost, so I'm going to give you an analogy here. They say that if I earn about, in Sweden they say, if you earn about 45,000 up to 45,000 crowns per month, about 4,000 euros, 4,500 euros per month, your happiness will increase up until that point. But after that point, your happiness will not increase afterwards. Now, is there some kind of metric like that for like physical well-being, that if you exercise like this or that much, you will optimize the performance or output in terms of thinking and driving campaigns and things like that?
Well, there's a white paper to be written and published, my friend. But no, like, I think, yeah. Do I know if there's could push you to an evidence to say that? No, but there has to be a correlation between. I think if you feel well in yourself, So that can mean something different for different people, but you probably feel like you're performing better now because you feel better from a self-awareness, a confidence piece, a self-talk piece, a positive affirmations piece, because I look a bit better. This is my frame. I look better in my shirt. You'll look better on the platform. That's got to help you. So I think that's massively important. For me, when we talk about people studying to a high level, if you're talking about, say, an 18-year-old student, right, who's studying for an exam at the moment, you try to break it up into chunks, be effective, Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes, and then take a mental break to come back fresh. And we'd often say in our space, be active then, give your brain a bit of a mental break, but be really active. Work on mobility, work on extending your body through range, through lubricating your joints. You're going to feel well in yourself. It's going to freshen you up and rejuvenate you a little bit. And I do think exercise is massively important. Never mind what the WHO might say, or the NHS, or whatever the governing body in your countries are. Exercise is medicine. Like, there's no doubt about it. You will feel better when you're fit and healthy. And for anyone out there who has an injury, just think about how that frames your day. I have a sore Achilles at the moment, and it's knocking me psychologically a little bit because it's annoying me and it's niggling me when I get up out of the chair. So that's going to affect your performance. So I think the physical well-being space, which is what most of my work would be grounded on, I think is massively important. But yeah, let's co-author a paper together and get that out there.
Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, and tied to that is like, so there isn't, so it's actual exercise, and like regularly. Is it every day, or was it because it's not going and doing the heavy deadlifts that's going to do this, or is it?
Well, it depends. Like, if you look, say, in the UK, they've got these what are called NICE guidelines, right? That would be linked to, say, their public health service, when they, little bits of low level intensity to moderate every day is good for you from a cardiovascular health reduction perspective and so forth, right? I think there's no doubt if you're active in bursts through the day, it's good. And it comes back to, like, a big thing we should think about is, 10,000 steps, the myth nearly of 10,000 steps. If you do 10,000 steps before 5 in the morning and then have a cheesecake and a carrot cake and a ribeye steak and carbonara, that's not great, is it?
That's a good day.
That's an epic day. That's a day you can be proud of. You can leave Earth after that day. No, but you want to be active throughout the day. You want to break up your levels of activity throughout the day so that you're getting up and moving throughout the day and replenishing your body. And that's really, and like we talk in sports medicine about HRV, people should look it up, heart rate variability, fluctuations of heart rate from steady resting state to more high level intensity. The more you bring in that, it's going to help you from a physiological and physical point of view, but mentally massively. So yeah, be active, and that could be mobility, it could be yoga, it could be Pilates, it could be shooting some hoops, but definitely burst through the day every day. I'd recommend it.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing that I had to implement, because otherwise I would have gone insane, was to have my morning routines between 6 and 7, where I just go. I don't necessarily lift that like heavyweights anymore because of like my hip that tells me that I shouldn't, but I more move around and condition myself, and the core that's sort of going to carry me. Now I'm starting to lean because it's late on Friday, but just gonna be able to sit there at the computer and do whatever I do. But like, I was in a bad place. Like, I was really, really down and out before I just started doing that. And I think it in part was due to the lockdown, but more importantly, I think it was just because, people weren't, as you were saying, people weren't behaving the same way. People were, sensitive to some things that weren't as sensitive before. And then for other things, they didn't even, care. And I like, when we were talking before, when we were talking the first time, I was like, maybe I was starting to connect the dots there that, as you were saying, all of our behaviors have changed due to our changed routines. And maybe we need to find ways to sort of, maybe not go back to our old routines, because some of them were pretty damaging to the world in particular, in terms of a lot of travel and things like that. But some of them we need to sort of wake up, and I'm not sure whether or not we're going to do that without, either going back to the gym or being able to do those exercises at home. Because in Sweden, the gyms have been open all the time.
Whereas here they're closed in Ireland. I think the awareness of maybe writing on a sheet of paper what you thought was good pre-COVID and what you think is good now, and looking at them, and that will give you context. So as an example, my commute is gone. Okay, so I'm not in a car for 2 hours. I can't listen to my podcast, so I'm missing out on a bit of learning development, but it gives me a bit more time to probably do something here. So I'm probably doing more yoga and mobility practice than I would have done. That's filling in that time. That's probably something I actually want to keep. I want to be doing more mobility, not just strength training when I come out of COVID, not just hitting the gym, but doing more of the lighter suppleness stuff. So I think understanding what you think makes you feel good and what you also feel is important for you. And that can vary, but like a little bit of strength training, yeah, keep it. Bit of cardio, keep it. Keep a steady, regular routine with your food and understanding the intake of it. That's important. Drink 2-3 glasses of water first thing in the morning. That's good for your brain. It's good for your cognition. It's good for your body. I think piecing out where you feel the valuable habits that you've probably even built over COVID, keep them as part of that routine. I think that's a huge thing, an exercise we should all do.
Yeah, just writing them down, putting them on the fridge or something.
Yeah,
I didn't eat as much cake before COVID. Now I do. No, I joke that away. One question about, because of the podcasts that you've been running now, and once you'll be meeting all of those people, is there something that has stood out to you, like given your background? Is there something that has stood out to you as sort of, I wasn't expecting this, or I wasn't thinking this before I was listening in on that talk?
Well, yeah, lots. Gee, I could give you loads of examples. We could speak for another hour on that. But one that stood out to me was a fellow called Steve Guerra, who's a big dog in the States, works at Leaders in Performance and worked at the Los Angeles Dodgers and Cleveland Browns and the Chargers. And so he was an assistant head coach in the NFL and had lots of other entities and really highly regarded, really good job and all that. And what he did was he challenged himself. Yeah, a lot of these guys push themselves outside their comfort zone and they do something a bit different. It's usually what keeps them going, keeps them evolving, keeps them getting better. And so he went and took a sabbatical, right? Like didn't kind of pack it in, but kind of moved away from a great spot and just went traveling around the world, around Europe for over a year to spend time with different people and different organizations based on curiosity, trying to learn what they were doing. And I came away from that and going, wow, that took a lot of courage to step away from day to day and to just embark on not knowing how that will affect you coming back. But what he did, he came back he learned so much and he brought it all back, and then he developed a business off it. And it kind of made me think that sometimes you can be afraid and nervous about taking the plunge or taking that step or leap of faith. But the guy at the top did it, and it worked out really well for him. He just went even higher from it, and it helped him massively. It's kind of stuck with me a lot because it'd be one of the reasons I want to keep the podcast going, to be able to nearly do what he's doing week to week, right? Having those conversations with different people, and that's the reason why it will keep going. Yeah, that kind of has stuck out with me a lot.
Yeah. Brings me to the feeling, like, contradictory to what I said before. One of the things that I miss is just traveling around, meeting people, because my job sort of opened up for that previously, and it gave you the break from the sort of Swedishness of it. In the group. Sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, like, for me, I think the biggest thing that's come out of COVID that I've learned is the importance of connection and relationships. And like, we're not just saying it for the sake of saying it. I think it is massively important. I now know who's in my circle, who I can trust, who's supporting me, who's challenging me, who's going to make me better tomorrow, and who's not worth being in that circle anymore. And I think that's important and you'll also find new relationships you'll build that are worth investing time and energy into, ones to drop and ones that need to be nurtured like a plant, right? Like, yes, I didn't know you a couple of weeks ago, and now, we've collaborated on this, and like something can come from this, right? So I think it's a massive, massive piece. Building relationships. The world is smaller now. It's so easy and accessible to get to people like that. even the podcast, I can reach people now I never thought I'd be able to reach.
No.
So yeah, relationships, massive.
Yeah. Going back to your early days of working with physiotherapy, is there something that you know you did it then that you wouldn't do now? Anything you recommended to do then that you go like, hey, no, this you shouldn't be doing in order to perform at a level where, because we all go to like, if, or not all of us, but some of us who are like really into that, go use like personal trainers, will read up on advice on the internet, we sort of get cluttered with all of this stuff. Is there something you have changed that?
Yeah, what I've learned through the pod and through the wellbeing space is the importance of keeping it simple. You don't have to overcomplicate things to make it sound like you're smart and intelligent. Oh, I've read all these books, therefore listen to me. And maybe in communicating with patients a couple of years ago, I think when you keep it really simple and straightforward and they understand what they need to do to just get better today, I think that's massively important and underrated and underappreciated, that now we're nearly always overly trying to impress people, especially with this virtual world. You're nearly trying to have to create a cinematic experience of engagement all the time. But oftentimes it's when you're just authentic and you're there, and you're keeping it real. I think there's so much to be said for that. And I think it's a human quality we should all not forget, really. And it's something, that coupled with just listening a bit more. Let's talk and listening more. That's something I've learned in the podcast. I can't ask a good question unless I've listened to what the person said. That will inform my question. So yeah.
That's very true. And now I sort of got frozen in my head, like, what is a good question? One of the questions that did come from the Facebook group, which like the author of that question didn't know, because he read in the end that you were a physiotherapist, like after he had written the question. So he came back saying, maybe this is a question that cannot be answered. But he asks this: how do I best compartmentalize and leave work at work and not bring it home with me? As in, how do I just leave that stuff over there? Pretty much what you were talking about, what those like high performers were doing, staying in the zone. How would I be able to do that more efficiently?
Well, we'll take two views on it, right? Laura Gassner-Otting, an author, would nearly flip that and challenged us on the podcast. She doesn't talk about work-life balance. She talks about work-life alignment. It's interesting. What she means is, would you not want to align what you're doing from a work point of view with your home lifestyle, so that you're nearly all in a perpetual state of, this is all good, is happy. So if I can just bring that energy at home, you don't nearly need that definitive disconnect, really. So that's that's a viewpoint. But yeah, so I think the compartmentalization is important. If you've had a stressful day, or something didn't go, you didn't make the sale, or you're pissed off with someone, when you're in the car on the way home, like, that's when you do need to say, I'm going home to my wife or my husband with my kids. And if I'm still thinking about that, that's not going to help bleeding into my personal life. We've all been there. I'm still working on it all the time. And what helps me, grounds me and sets me and gets me ready to leave the work behind the second I get out of my car, is I actually breathe, right? It sounds very basic again, but keeping it simple. Breath work, not going to talk too much about mindfulness or meditation, but I think if you take simple breath cycles, 2 or 3 minutes, nasal breathing, longer exhales than inhales, and that sets you, right? And what that helps you do is it helps you remove yourself from what happened, from all that crap I want to leave behind. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ground myself where my feet are right now, breathe, be conscious about my breathing. And then what happens is you nearly step away from the work. It's nearly like a second body comes away from it. You'll find it'll set you up and reframe your mindset, so that when you step at home, you're nearly a bit fresher and you can be, happier, maybe because you might have been pissed off. So it's something that's worked for me a lot, because it happens, when you're building a practice as an entrepreneur, all days aren't rosy. So you need to be able to leave it behind. And I think the breathing is something that also, I could name 5 or 6 guests, and all they spoke about was breathing. And we don't breathe well, and we breathe a lot. So if you don't breathe well functioning through the day, it's going to affect you. But it's a great tool to be able to use to compartmentalize and separate different parts of your day. So yeah, that's what I would that's what I'd say. Look into breathing, box breathing.
And in the privacy of your car, or I mean, I wouldn't stand in the metro and do chakra breathing, just, but it is effective. I used to get off of my chair in the office and go into the toilet to just do a little bit of that, because just as you were saying, once that pissed offness comes to you and it sticks with you, then
get rid of the busy mind. I mean, it's hard, right? And it sounds preachy. And I don't have it perfect at all, but it's an iteration. But I think if it's a skill that can be trained. We don't have to do Wim Hof. We're not going up Everest in a pair of shorts doing all that. But if you get a little bit of it right, it's a great way of reducing anxiety and setting you up well to be where you need to be, right? Because if you're supposed to be playing with your kids or watching a movie with your spouse and your head's still in work, that's no good for anyone. That's gonna cause so many problems. So that would be the one.
And you will probably not have cleared off the problem when you get to work the next morning, and you will be tired, and you will have the anxiety of your partner. You might have said something to your partner that messed up the situation, and it's so interesting because for me especially, when you talk about putting that into a routine, I will have to do that every day if I'm going to remember to do it when I'm pissed off.
For sure.
Yeah,
it needs to be proactive. If it's reactive, it's no good. You need to be able to lean on it when you're not thinking about it. So it needs to be like a light switch, like a habit, automatically ingrained. So that's pissed me off, and then you know what, I'm pissed off, and then do 1 minute now. Let's see how that works, and test it out and stick with it for 30 days like a cold shower and see how you get on.
Yeah, not a cold shower. I'd much rather do breathing. That's good to get you going as well. Like I generally, when I wake up early to go to when the gym opens, because otherwise there's a line, the Corona line outside. So that's what I always think about. I think about the line, and I also think about if I don't go, I have to do emails now. And I hate emails, so then it's easier going to the gym. So those kind of tricks are pretty good. There was another question in the group about eating. I don't know how familiar you are with like food and is there so let me specify that question. Is there a finger food that I can eat which is healthy for me whilst I'm working? Like if I'm working, I'm getting you're waiting a little bit for something to come through, like a campaign to be uploaded or something like that. And, you just start picking around. And is there something that...
Yeah, I'm going to rub something I spoke to recently, and I wouldn't have had a clue. I'm not a dietitian. Oh. Beetroot juice. Not nice.
Juice.
It's not nice. There was an article actually written off one of our pods recently. A journalist here in Ireland picked it up from David Dunn, that beetroot juice is supposed to help get you into a more productive state for a lot of different reasons. Like, I'm not going to go there, but just nitrates and what it does to your bloodstream and to your system. And there's some evidence out there. It's been used in the UFC and things like that you can take it. People sometimes take it prior to fights, even, and things like that. So beetroot juice is supposed to get you into the other thing that, if you hear Jay Shetty, people like that, they talk about taking celery juice, taking that in the morning, hydrates you, cleanses you out for sure. But there's anecdotal evidence, they say it can make you a little bit more productive. Like me, I like caffeine, I do it, but of course people talk about the spikes, but I think nearly the placebo effect of it, it's in my head that I think if I take that, I feel like I'm a bit more locked in. But yeah, definitely those first two. And then, Google nootropics. That's not a finger food, but nutraceuticals and all those fancy things that companies like Motion and other entities and MindLab Pro, kind of like the blue pill out of Limitless, modafinil, all that sort of stuff is interesting for people to look at too, right? I'm really digging into that. That's interesting.
I'm going to start opening up the room. If anyone has any questions, either you watching on YouTube or on Facebook, or the people who are in the room at Clubhouse, anyone who wants to bring anything up, just raise your hand. And you raise your hand by, just hitting that little icon of yourself, and you can raise your hand. it usually takes a few moments before we get the comments to come in, because there is a lag. We have one user here on YouTube who has sent us 1,000 angry faces throughout throughout the session, and I suppose that this user wants to tell us something, but it's pretty hard to know what these angry faces are for unless you sort of elaborate on that, or you are a chatbot who just visited this stream and made some comments. We have a lot of people, a lot of professionals here who have been working in who I have been working with before, who I know have experienced situations in their life that they might want to have questions about. But we're not going to force anyone to come up because that's not Clubhouse or YouTube friendly, or I don't know how to call it. Like it's not accustomed to do that. Right. So anything you've been thinking about that you wanted to sort of bring to when we were talking, like what is there anything that you wanted to bring to the people that were talking? It's a lot of growth hackers and people who work with digital marketing, people who are in stressful situations. Are there any advice, like general advice that you'd like to give at this point in time?
I think no, it sounds funny, but playtime, really doing what a child does every so often can really help you. It's something that I've learned and seen. So when I was 15, I used to love drawing, right? As an example, love comics. Gary Larson, Far Side Gallery was all over that. And what I've started to do last 6-7 months with my 3-year-old son is we go down and he's there coloring and drawing all over the walls and he's making an absolute mess. And I just started kind of drawing beside him and sketching. You kind of hear about that, people drawing for a meditation purpose. But recently spoke to a fellow called Mike Road, has a podcast, does a lot on sketch notes. Really interesting, how to capture big ideas visually, not just words. And it made me think, like it's something like we're all creative. We've all shown how creative we can be over the last year and more, that we're more creative than we would think we are. But there's a lot to be said for people that can kind of capture that with drawing, but also it's a great way of escapism and slowing down and reducing stress as well. So it's something I'm working on a little bit more. I've enjoyed it, and something we can all do a little bit more of.
Yeah, I'm gonna take off this so that the person can hear what. So we got someone who joined us here on Clubhouse, and it's David. David is actually the person who introduced me and David with each other. So we're all David and Jesper here. Hi David, how are you doing?
Hi, yes, sir. Thanks for the invite up on stage. Hi, David.
Dave.
Looks like you're very well.
Dave, nice to hear you. Thanks for introing me to the main man. It's been fun.
It's great. So I have a question for Jesper about growth hacking. And I was really interested to know, how are people doing when they have a main job and they're trying to develop their side hustle? Do you not find they're burning out, that we're having to put in these double shifts? And I wonder what's your experience, because you're dealing with so many people who are interested in, turbocharging their careers. So are they usually only doing one job, or are they trying to really get the side hustle going?
Right. So it's a little bit of both, like, and we can see it also in terms of the people who are running their influencer game on YouTube and such channels that are sort of dependent upon growth. I mean, anyone who wants to learn. We had a guy in here previously in the Clubhouse room who is also having a side business, but we discussed this a few weeks back. If you work in a big setting, like in a big corporate setting, the only way you will learn is if you do it on your own on the side. And this will take a lot out of everything that you do in your life, like all the relationships that you have, all of the people that you sort of trying to sort of maintain some kind of relationship with. But if you are an introvert, let's say, who get energy out of being alone, and that sort of works for you, then it's usually, I'm a liar now. I say that it's usually not a problem, because it's always a problem when you go into that sort of space. But yeah, So being a good growth hacker or being a good like tactical marketer, it takes a toll on the people that are around you, and it takes a toll on yourself after a while. If not when everything is running smoothly, like when everything is just happening, everything is, you're building, you're learning, you're excited about it, that curiosity that David was talking about before is on a high level and things like that, then there is no problems. Like there are very limited stress levels. But as soon as something goes wrong, when you're already running on extinction fuels, then everything can crash. And we've seen it happen to so many people. I mean, just look at all of the YouTubers out there that are posting regular content. They pretty much everyone who posts every day for a while, after a while they sort of burn out. They burn out completely. And I don't really know how to deal with it. I've dealt with it by crashing every once in a while throughout my career. But then the manic nerve sets in again, and the curiosity takes over, and you have to learn. I have to learn this thing, and then I go into my bubble.
I think, Dave, I'd love to add to that. Great point, man. Great question. I think, because I've been working on some side hustles, loads of them, since I came back from London. And I think it's important, if you're doing something, you want to do it well. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to go down a rabbit hole to nowhere. But if you can find entities or hustles or several projects that are all nearly somewhat similar to you, but maybe not apparent to the outsider, to the buyer, to the market. So as an example, wellbeing, mentoring online, podcasts, they're all the same thing. They're all learning, development, education. They're all listening to people, distilling it, curating content, repurposing it. That's all it is. So it's not like I'm having to reinvent the wheel several times to keep building those separate Bunsen burners, to use like a James Clear analogy. And it does help you remove yourself from the potential to be burned out, because when you know that they're all kind of built on the same thing, you understand who you can trust to delegate work to, who you can bring into your team and say, look, we need to hire digital marketing to do that, or we need to hire a sales guru to do that, because you're out of the weeds, you're thinking strategy, you're thinking vision, because they're all somewhat similar. It's just from experience. So yeah, interesting point, great point.
And Jesper, I know you love an equation, because I often like to watch your videos, and you can work out what motivation is through your special equation. And I just wonder, if there's 168 hours in the day and you have a 40-hour week and you're meant to sleep for 8 hours a day, so there's the other part of the 168 hours knocked off, how many hours is actually safe to allocate to the famous side hustle? And that could be a podcast, or that could be mentoring, or that could be something else. So Jesper, what do you think, holding down a job, how many hours can you give in a week to the side hustle?
When I've done it sustainably, it's not more than 1 hour a day. So, you know what I mean? And you need, like for me, so the way I've set it up now, where I'm feeling very good, is I've set it up so that I work my day job or my week job during the week. So there I'm very, I get up at the same time, I go to the gym at the same time, I work from home, and then at 5, 6 in the evening, I sort of shut down. I just completely shut down. There might be a phone call after that, but then I'm free. I'm not allowed to do any work at all, not the side hustle or anything. If I plan the side hustle within the week, then I need to plan it within those hours, and it's 1 hour a day maximum. But what I'm doing now instead is that I've decided to have weekends for the first time in a long time. And so I decided Saturdays are off. So Saturdays I'm hardly even allowed to use my phone on a Saturday. And I just completely disconnect from everything, a little bit like the compartmentalization that someone was talking about. And I will definitely implement the breathing a bit, because I haven't done that. And so I might go into the Saturday, in the first half of the Saturday, I'm still furious about something that happened at 4:00 on a Friday. So my Saturday is sort of shitty. But the Sundays, then I work, I get up in the morning the same time I would on a Monday, and I work until noon, and I try to be as efficient as possible. But then again switch off after lunch on Sundays, and then I do, the binge watching of the Netflix and stuff like that, where I sort of indulge in all the unnecessary practices. And if I allocate, so here's for the side hustle question, if I allocate the side hustle to the Sunday mornings, then I have 5 good hours there until 1 o'clock, from 8 to 1, where I'm allowed to do that. And then it doesn't hurt me, then it doesn't burn me out. Then but if I do more than 5 hours a week or 1 hour a day, I will burn out. I will, if I stay up until like 10:30, 11 at night every day, and then I sleep until 4 in the morning, then it will haunt me in a little, like it will come to haunt me. It will take like 6 weeks or something like that, and then I will be really messed up. So 1 hour a day, or as I'm doing it right now, that I really like, because then the focus in the weeks is really good. If I go home on a Friday, if I am home, but I quit working on a Friday, and I haven't done everything I need to do, then that's a bad planning on my behalf. But that's what I have to do. I have to finish the work. And before, I used to be like, nah, I'll just leave this for the week, and I can always catch up on another day. And that was not good practice. And then I had been sloppy with the side gigs in the week. But if I know that I'm not allowed to do my side gig if I don't complete the work in the week, so I won't have my Sunday mornings, then so it's a bit of a trickery with I have that as a carrot to be able to do that on the Sunday morning, or I have to do the week work on that time, and I really don't appreciate doing the week work during the weekend. Long answer, sorry, but that's my answer. Well, how I do it. I don't know. Well, David, what do you have any ideas there? Do you have any thoughts?
I just like that. I love that. I love that idea of kind of bookending it, trying to be accountable. What's coming through there is your routine. You're preparing. You're trying to set yourself up well. And if it spills out of control, it's not something you're happy with, right? You're pissed off at yourself and like, why did that happen? With 2 projects at the moment that are very much side hustles, interesting to see if they evolve and where they go, and doing them with other people. Try to cap them at 3 hours a week max. That's everything. That's communication. That's on the phone. That's LinkedIn. It's building out stuff creatively. So 3 hours, because that's 6 hours. Like, that's a lot. That's a huge commitment because I'm not getting paid for it. But worth still putting in those good hours, because they could become something interesting down the line. So I have 2 that I would define as that, and I cap it at 3 because it's 2, but 6 is the same as your 1 for 5. So pretty similar on that one. I try to really not do anything on the weekends now. I used to be really bad at it, even up till 6 months ago. Podcast and writing blogs and articles used to spill into the weekends. Yeah. I've tried to really get everything done, close a business 6, 7 evening on a Friday, because it just kind of ruins the dynamic when I'm trying to be at home with the family on the weekend. It's no good.
Fefe joined us, and I'd like to invite him to. Hi, Fefe. How are you doing?
Hi there. Thanks for an interesting conversation, and thanks for sharing both. I'm fine, actually, but sharing your thoughts and also listening to David's. And I came through a small breakdown similar to yours, Jesper. Yeah. When work took over me, but I was also coming from very demanding sickness as well. Yeah. And during those years, I've been kind of checking out what I could improve, what I could actually take off from my schedule, and trying to find different purposes as well. And looking among a lot of S&P 500 executive managers and so on, I found that they don't work that much. But when they do it so efficiently. And what they do a lot is have leisure time doing something that I missed from your conversation, is doing the things they love. That's being hanging out with friends, maybe go surfing, do whatever that kind of executive does. Yeah. So I picked up summertime. I do a lot of skateboarding because that's really close to my heart. Now, when that's limited because of the snow and indoors parks are being dedicated only to youth, that spread corona less. I try to be as much as I can in nature. Also, water is a really close at heart for me, being a diver, and I feel better underneath the surface than I do above, for multiple reasons, because this is a really strange and complex world. While the sea is so much nicer in that sense. I'm babbling away here, but doing things you love tends to give you different perspectives on work life, and just like you, Jesper, I'm over my head with work at the moment, and the balance is really hard to find. And that is actually, what do you say, it's affecting everyone's around me as well, because mood swings and everything, stuff like that too. So breath work works really well for me, and reading a lot of this, one book that really stroked me as a good way for me was 5 a.m. Club. And I do go up early, and I do dedicate every morning to physical work. Like, I do exercise a lot, and just like Jesper, I try to dodge the corona tsunami coming to the gym. So I get up 4:20, and I'm in the gym before 5, and I exit at 6, because that's when the tsunami wave comes. And I try also to take a long walk in the forest after that. And that gives me like a peace of mind starting to work, but then the workload comes back at me.
Can I jump in for a minute on that? Perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've been talking way too much.
Nah, first I'd like to say, acknowledging you, like, brilliant. You're doing forest bathing is what they call that, right? So tapping into nature, grounding, earthing, supposed to be so good for the mood, neurochemistry point of view, dopamine release, all that sort of stuff, right? But with well-being, we often talk about different pillars. We talk about physical, mental, social, and occupational. So at the moment, you've got one that's occupational, right? You don't quite have the 4-hour work week like Tim Ferriss. When you're trying to be really deep and just doing that, it's kind of spilling into the rest. But you've got a great piece going there in the morning with the physical, which is going to manifest itself massively into mentally feeling better. Getting up, owning your morning, like that's such a great start. Like, you have to really pat yourself on the back for that, setting yourself up well. And then getting into nature, water, like, it's the same as nature. You're getting away from the phone, from people annoying you. It's also time for yourself to develop as a person and to ask questions and build off that self-awareness piece, which is really important from a well-being perspective, but also does help you perform better. So I just wanted to kind of just make those remarks. It sounds like you're off to something really good with those. Just need to find more of it through your day and understand how you can chunk it up into your work situation. But you're off to a good start there.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I really as well. I like to stress that I know what I don't know what you're coming from, but I know that our work situation is because we're working in the same industry, and like the different pressures that's coming out of that is somewhat, they're somewhat strange, because they in relation to having, like, when I was having, as David was saying before, then when you have like some kind of physical or some kind of illness that is sort of on your case the whole time, and you get that pressure from the day-to-day work, and you work as a consultant, meaning you can't stop working, that pressure sort of kicks in, and you just go, after a while that pressure just, like, it becomes overwhelming, and I crash. Like, I in December I got really depressed and a little bit crazy as well. But until, like, after that, once I just quit everything and just went to lay down for a month, basically, and then I started exercising. But as you were saying, like finding something you love on the side of what it is that you have to do, I haven't found that. So because the thing that I love is working with digital tactics. So it's sort of it's intertwined with each other. So I'm always jealous, a little bit jealous, when I see whenever you're posting something that you're doing surfing and things like that. I'm like, I would love to do that, but I don't know how to do that, and I don't know how to get into that, right? Because I don't think that I would love it. I tried it twice. It looks beautiful when someone else does it, but I tried it twice, and it wasn't beautiful when I was doing it. It didn't feel very comfortable either.
Like Fefe, I would just say, look up flow science, look up the flow cycle, work from Stephen Kotler, because if you can find those activities like going into the water, dive in nature, that will amplify your work in a good way. So finding those other activities that just get you doing things at a higher level and a better level. For me, that is training in the morning. It is breathing. Those things set me up to just be more optimal when I have to do stuff, even stuff I don't want to do. So look at the flow cycle. Have a look at it. Yeah, I studied it a good bit.
I did take a little bit away from Wim Hof because he was on everybody's lips for some time, and I do often his breath work, but when I kind of like forget that, because it goes hand in hand that I want to expand my time underwater without tanks as well. So I try to do breath holding exercises, which also comes back to breathing and belly breathing.
Yeah, and it's also very good for building your resilience and your grit for when times are tough, right? So for the work situations, you can lean on that physical practice to help with those situations, because diaphragmatic breathing and all that, nasal and breath holds, it's all so good for you from a physiological capacity. So keep doing more of that. More of that.
Cool. We have a question here from YouTube. Warren asks, David, love your point on the difference between work-life alignment and work-life balance. What top tips would you give to help listeners? Like, how could we turn into work-life alignment or work-life balance? Because I would like to second this with weight on balance rather than alignment, because it's all one for me.
Yeah, well, the fact that you have it all for one means you're doing what you love and what you're good at, right? You've married your skill set and your competency and what you're passionate about, and I can second that. I'm really grateful that what I do for work, I actually enjoy it. I don't see it as work, and you hear about that. You hear it as a cliche, but that's when the alignment piece comes into play, right? So if I'm talking about well-being and performance all day, you'd figure it will bleed into my day. Not always, and things don't always go well, but more often than not, at least I have some practices I can lean on and call upon. Work-life, like just the balance point, it is about trying to avoid burnout, trying to avoid unnecessary stress and emotional baggage by, as best you can, removing it if it's possible, and removing those relationships, those people that are toxic and are not helping situations, and dropping things that aren't good for you, understanding what a bad habit is, and then just really trying to maybe think about, is this what you want to be doing? Like, we're not here forever. Memento mori, like we're on a holiday and all that. Stoicism, that's all. Like, if you do think a minute, it sounds a bit heavy, but we're not here forever. So as much as sometimes you're trying to chase the money and chase getting the mortgage and chasing the nice car, if you can kind of find what you love, like Jesper is doing that, he's got a bit of alignment. I'm nearer to it now. I'm very happy with what I do. It's not stressful, it's I really enjoy all the little things even. So that's kind of how I'd expand on that one. But great question. Great question, Ryan.
Building on what you said about the chase, I have another question here, but from Anders or A. Lundqvist. It's about question to both of you. How do you foresee your retirement?
I'm not going to retire. I look at my dad, huge role model in my life. has had a turbulent couple of years, got cancer and all these sort of things hit him, but made him stronger. But he's not going to retire. Kind of thought he would 2-3 years ago when he hit 60, and no, he's innately curious. He's always reading, he's attending courses, he's doing, studying more, and he's doing different consultancy. And I look at him and I go, it's keeping him going, it's keeping him curious about what other people are doing. He can hold different conversations with different people for it. And mentally, he seems to be in a better space for it. So I look at him and I go, it's served him well. And if you can find things you're interested in, you want to keep doing it. I won't be able to practice with my hands as a clinician all the time,
no,
but I can do lots of other things. So I don't see myself really retiring in the strictest sense of the word. Over to you, my friend.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I think I'll probably do this. Okay, so here's the thing. I think every single day that I will be replaced by robots tomorrow, right? So I will be automated out of work. So that's my sort of, someone's gonna chase me, or someone, because I'm 40 now, and when I started I was 25, 24, something like that. And there are people who are 24, 25, like coming at this now, doing the tactics, and I'm thinking like, they must be smarter than me, and then it sort of makes me, that's sort of the fuel. It's sort of a competition. I don't know, it's an ugly thing, but I want to be the best still, and that sort of pulls me in back to doing the practice and things like that. So I don't know when that will die out. But as soon as that dies out, as soon as I am feeling like, either a robot is doing what I'm doing better, or I feel that, which will be pretty soon, or it probably are robots that are doing it, but people are not buying robots yet because we like the interpersonal thing here, doing things together. But then again, when I feel like I'm being outperformed by a landslide, then I think that I have to quit, because my advice will not be good enough. There will be other people who will be better than me, and significantly better than me. Then I will probably find out when I have to quit the harsh way, meaning I will fail terribly at something and not have the answer of why I failed. And if those become frequent, those times, then it's time to step off and become a strategist. No. But that's all. Yeah, I joke about that, but no, I will never go in that direction, because I'm not good at that. I will be way behind. Video maker possibly, but no, I won't stop working. I don't think so. It's too much fun. All right, so we haven't had any raised hands here for a while in the group on Clubhouse, and we have dealt with the questions that currently exist on YouTube and Facebook. So we've been here for a little bit more than an hour, and that's pretty much how long I had planned for this, because I have one more thing to do before I can call this a weekend after this. But so I'd just like to wrap up if that's okay with everyone, and just thank you, David, for joining me. And this is a bit of an experiment. This is the second time I try to sort of coexist in worlds that usually don't connect, with Clubhouse and YouTube and everything. Thank you for being here, and please join me again in the future and continue this talk. I'm sure there will be questions. They usually are in the aftermath on both YouTube and Facebook, and maybe we can deal with those questions then.
I really enjoyed it, Esther. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it. And look, hope we've given some value to the people listening. Thanks for the questions coming in. And everyone have a great weekend. And yeah, try the breathing. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, man. Have a good day. To everyone, I hope you have a great weekend. If I don't see you, if I see you, then I hope you have a great weekend with me. So see you Sunday at 11:30, where we will be solving some tactical problems together. Until then, over and out.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
Cheers. Thank you, Fefa. Thanks for, yes, you too.
Thank you.
And the room on Clubhouse is over, and I'm going to end the broadcast on YouTube now.